Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at Uhevsky Brod at the CZ factory, taking a look at some of their really cool, in this case, current modern firearms. So what we have today is the Bren 2 BR, which does in fact stand for battle rifle. This is a further development of the CZ Bren 2 in 7.62 NATO. And the rationale is there are a bunch of national militaries out there and police and security organizations that are interested still in 7.62 NATO as a service cartridge. Now, these are often not rifles that are being looked for as a universal service weapon for a country, but rather a slightly more specialized weapon for specific applications. We see the same sort of pattern with, for example, FN making the SCAR in both a 5.56 version and a 7.62 version. Frankly, we sort of see it all the way back with Armalite in the AR-10 and the AR-15. Well, CZ is doing the same thing. So this is only manufactured as a military rifle at this point. It is selective fire, and it was introduced first in 2018. So this is still really a quite new product for CZ. They have already gotten a couple of purchasers for it, probably the most notable being the Hungarian military, who, as I alluded to, did not purchase this for their entire military, but rather as a special application sort of weapon. Also being used by Kenya, interestingly, the part of the Kenyan Wildlife Protection Service, I'm not sure the exact name of the organization, is using these for anti-poaching and wildlife protection, which is pretty cool. So fundamentally, mechanically, this is the same system as the standard Bren 2 in the smaller calibers, but let's go ahead and pull it apart and I'll show you the internals. The marking on the side just says CZ Bren 2. They don't actually have the BR designation on the receiver, or at least with current production they don't. As a side note, it's kind of interesting to me to see how some of our terminology and language evolves. Battle rifle really is a term that got its start on the gun forums on the internet 20 years ago as a way to differentiate 7.62 from 5.56 caliber military rifles. And it's never really been considered an official technical term, and yet it has become popular enough and a useful enough term that now we're seeing companies like CZ actually adopting it as formal names, a formal name for one of their products, it's just neat to see that sort of evolution of language in action. Made in the Czech Republic, of course. And then on the opposite side, the only markings we have are serial numbers. This particular one is an early production gun, proofed in 2018. The BR has a magazine well that is sized and fitted for totally normal magazines. CZ does make their own magazine for it, the CZ mag, marked 7.62 by 51. And interestingly, it is a 25 round capacity instead of the 20 that you typically see on AR-10 pattern rifles. 30 rounds is simply a bit too long to fit on with a bipod or when shooting prone, but CZ decided that 25 was feasible and gives you a little bit more capacity over a 20 round mag. They do also have a viewing window in the back, and if I push the follower down, you can see that indicator line, and the magazine is marked 5 and 20. So your indicator window, if it's empty, you know the thing is almost completely empty or it's almost completely full. And then the window will give you some idea of capacity when it's partway in between. The controls here are identical to the standard smaller Bren 2s. So on the right side, we have magazine release, we have selector switch, we have a bolt lock and release in the trigger guard. That's something that was specifically requested by the Czech military for the original Bren 2s. And fully ambidextrous controls here. So on the left side, we again have selector switch, bolt lock and release, and magazine release. Like the smaller Bren 2s, we have a little storage compartment in the pistol grip. There we go. There's nothing specific that's intended to go in there. It's just for whatever you need. Spare batteries probably are the most likely thing. And of course, the charging handle can also be swapped from left to right. So there's a slot for the charging handle on both sides of the receiver. A lot of these components The small parts, like the controls, the selector switch, a lot of those are interchangeable between the two different sizes of Bren 2. Obviously, the upper and lower receivers are not, nor is the bolt. The stock is also the same as the smaller Bren 2s. It is extendable and also foldable. There we go, a little tight here. And the stock locks in place under the ejection buffer, or the deflector, case deflector. And it's just, there's nothing fancy there. There aren't even any springs. It's just polymer interlocking on polymer. So it's easy to snap it out and push it down just a little bit and it comes loose. One other difference between the BR and the smaller caliber Bren 2s is actually the rear sight. It's the same style of rear sight, but instead of having standard minute of angle adjustments, it actually has a BDC built into it. So it's marked from 1 out to 6 in 50-meter increments. Disassembly begins with the 1 pin here that holds the fire control, or the lower receiver, in place. That is a captive pin, so I can pull it all the way out there. And then the fire control, the lower receiver with the fire control group all comes off. There's nothing special about the fire control group here. We can then fold the stock in and then push this lever and remove the stock assembly, and then pull the bolt handle back to here. The handle comes out, recoil spring comes out, and then the one slightly tricky step, or the one slightly unexpected step, is you then reach in, depress this button, which allows you to disconnect the bolt carrier from the charging handle. So this has a cool system in it where the charging handle can be used to pull the bolt back or push it forward, but when it's in the fully forward position, this lever, this switch here, is actually pushed up by the front of the trunnion and disconnects the charging handle so that it doesn't actually reciprocate while you're firing. It's really kind of a neat solution. And we can pull that out the back as well. So this cutout on the front of the bolt carrier hooks into that hook right there. So these are locked together until this lifts up, and then the bolt carrier can slide independent of the charging handle. Basically what we have here is a typical Bren 2 bolt assembly, bolt and carrier, larger to fit 7.62 NATO. We have dual plunger ejectors there. On the front end, we have a gas block with an adjustable gas port, 3 positions, so it's 1 for normal operation, 2 for excessively dirty operation, and then 1 position that is completely cut off for using rifle grenades for those countries that want it. So to adjust this, all you have to do is just snap this from position to position, and it's got a big hole in it so that you can stick a cartridge through there to adjust it while it's hot if necessary. You can also disassemble the whole gas system from the front end, push the lever in, rotate this around to right there. There we go. And we have the gas plug. Note the 2 different apertures, so a significant difference in size between the standard and the dirty positions. And we have the op rod itself there. So it takes gas from this end, like so, and that's going to push the op rod here back. This end pushes on the bolt carrier, and it has a little return spring. So there is Bren 2 BR disassembled. Now let's go ahead and take it out on the range and see how it actually shoots.
So this is a 308. It's not going to kick like a 223, but it's actually pretty smooth and controllable. It's not bad to shoot. Certainly better than some. All right, I've got 5 rounds left. Let's try a burst or two, because one of the side effects of this being a military and law enforcement rifle is it's got the fully functional fire control group, not just plain semi-auto as we would typically get on a commercial rifle in the US. All right, that's going to take a little more practice. Fortunately, I have more ammo. Whew. Yeah, there's the classic question of what is the point of full auto in a shoulder-fired 308? You know, even with mainstream militaries, we saw the US with the M14 and the British with the FAL, the SLR, deliberately take full auto off of their 308 infantry rifles because it was deemed not really productive. And this is, I would say this is not quite the most controllable full auto 308 I've shot. That would probably go to the original Armalite AR-10s, but it's a heck of a lot better than my experience with FALs and G3s. And now I'm out. Also, it's harder for me right-handed than left. All right, so if you guys are, some of you are familiar with the Bren 2, and you may have noticed that this is actually set to gas port number 2, which is like the fouled or the extreme conditions setting. And you may wonder, like, why would that be? And the answer is because this is actually one of CZ's demo Bren 2s, BRs, that has literally 18,000 rounds through it. And the gas system has, it's got a gas leak in it somewhere at this point from all of that gas erosion. And it runs great. Just has to be on setting 2 now. So. To me, frankly, it's pretty impressive that it still runs at 18,000 rounds. Now, we're going to go ahead and put a suppressor on it and try that out a bit. And we're going to turn it, I think we can run it back at gas port 1 with the suppressor. Less recoil, more gas. I suppose that's the trade-off of suppressors. I'm going to break our target. It's a pretty sweet 308 rifle. Sadly, it is only a full auto 308 rifle because apparently CZ has no plans to release this as a semi-auto in the US market or anywhere else for that matter. Personally, I think that's a mistake. I think this could actually do quite well, especially in the US. Fully ambidextrous controls, a proven military pattern system, good magazines, Stanag magazines, 25 rounders here from CZ. It'll take all the other Stanag, 7.62 caliber mags. I think this could be really cool. Possibly, perhaps, if enough of you guys like the video and start pestering CZ management that they ought to sell this in the US because you want one, maybe they'd actually do it. In the meantime, I'm going to stick with the full auto one here and go ahead and dump this whole magazine through. A big thanks to CZ for the opportunity to try this out, even if I am, I guess, throwing some shade at their product division for not actually letting us buy it. Check out the description text below for links to CZ's social media. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video.